Hey guys, Paul Morrow here again for RopsDesk.org, doing a big news recap for Monday, 7th July. Here we go. Right now, everybody's talking about the Jeffrey Epstein case and the results that were recently issued by DOJ. Look, I think that a lot of us here are focusing on the wrong thing. There's a lot of argumentation about whether or not he committed suicide. It's not really the issue. He did, okay? The idea that the whole entire corrections shift covered up the suicide and managed to do that and keep quiet all this time, it just didn't happen, okay? The most likely scenario is the one that you heard. A couple of the corrections officers fell asleep. The warden was incompetent because he wasn't keeping an eye on his most high-profile prisoner. The cameras didn't work. How they could let that happen with Epstein there? Preposterous, and yet nobody got fired, all right? That's really the issue relative to the suicide. But taking the suicide off the table, the other stuff is valid. The other questions remain. Why aren't we hearing more about the investigation? And look, it's not me talking. That's what Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, promised. She gave out those binders. She said answers would be forthcoming. And they haven't showed up, and that's her words. Now, I actually think she's been doing a pretty good job. We've had some big takedowns by DOJ. You had the big thing in New Jersey relative to violent criminals. You had a big medical fraud ring taken down. That's the kind of stuff we weren't getting under the Biden DOJ. But that said, it's not a zero-sum game. She, I think, got out over her skis a little bit on the Epstein thing, and I think this is one she'd like to have back. Unfortunately, it's recorded, it's out there. She doesn't look great on this one, and unfortunately, it's going to undercut trust in the administration, even among a lot of the MAGA supporters who want to support the Trump administration here. This one, I think, is an unforced error, and I think it's going to linger, unfortunately. We should be asking for the results of the search warrants. To put a very fine point on it, we should be asking, there's a lot of confusion around this whole thing. We should be asking for the search warrant returns. There were at least 3 search warrants executed on Epstein's building here in Manhattan, on his Florida residence, and then on the island. All 3 of those have to have return documents. You have to bring the return document that shows what you got at the search warrant back to the court that issued the warrant and show it to the judge. Those documents are out there. We should get those. Where are the search warrant returns? This may engender more questions than answers, but nonetheless, at least you'd have something, and it would show some transparency. Right now, we don't have that transparency, and I think that's why everybody is so frustrated. Remember something, too. This is not FBI's call. Patel and Bongino are not making the call relative to the release of this stuff. Their boss is Pam Bondi, the one who's been doing the speaking for most of this. And her boss is Donald Trump. But really, she's been the face of this. They're just taking their orders. So really, we should be asking for Pam Bondi's DOJ to say, have your lawyers who oversaw those warrants, who obtained those warrants, release those documents. I think that's where I would start. All right, let's move on. Another story, clearly the attacks on ICE. And just like when we saw assassination attempts on Donald Trump, after the Democrats were saying all kinds of terrible things about Trump, then all of a sudden there were shots fired at Trump, and then they were like, oh, okay, dial down the rhetoric. Well, have we learned anything? Obviously not. Dana Perino on The 5 today on Fox read out some of the statements from Democrats essentially saying there needs to be blood. And then is it any shock that people are shooting at ICE facilities and setting ICE cars on fire and actually shooting at ICE agents? This has got to stop. And you know what? I got bad news for the Karen Basses of the world, who's the LA mayor. You don't have standing. You get in the way of a federal operation, so step off. And I love the fact that the CBP guys there, who it's a federal agency, just put her on the phone with their boss, who likely told her, hello, mayor, stand down. All right? Look, ICE, make sure anybody who gets in the way, you arrest and prosecute, just like MacGyver in New Jersey. Go all the way with these things, because it's the only way they're going to learn. We have it going on right now in Atlanta. If you remember the Stop Cop City case, the first of those cases, which have been like 3 years in the making, it's, believe it or not, a state-level RICO. More power to Georgia for bringing that, because the AG down there of Georgia is a Republican, Chris Carr. But we just got a mistrial today, okay? Don't take that as a no. Keep going. Retry the case, keep them in jail, go all the way. It's the only way they'll learn. Paul Morrow for the Ops Desk.